This episode is dedicated to Genesis, a beautiful soul who is now up in the heavens, shining down on her family and loved ones. It was such an honor to hear your story through your beautiful sister. We honor you for all that you are, and thank you for allowing your story to be shared along with all the life lessons that will globally impact those who are listening right now. I'd also like to thank Ashley from the bottom of my heart for sharing her story around human trafficking, sex work, and the challenges she's endured as a first-generational Latina and twin mom. It is women like the both of you who share their story bravely that the world will continue to change. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Hi, my name is Samantha. Welcome to Safe Haven Sanctuary. I am a trauma expert, self-worth, and intimacy mentor. I use a clinical, spiritual, and energetic lens to heal the body, mind, heart, and soul. This is a space for you to let your walls down, welcome in vulnerability, apply and integrate what resonates, and free yourself from the rest of it. The universe is here to support your deepest dreams, and the only way to meet those dreams fully is by meeting yourself in its full depths and embodying the calling of your soul. Thank you for being here, and let's rise up in our ability to expand and thrive. All right, so we have Ashley here today who's going to be sharing her beautiful story. It's so powerful. Ashley and we actually met online. I don't know how we found each other.
Right.
But we've built such a beautiful relationship, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit more, and I'm really excited to have you on here. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me on here.
No,
This is exciting.
Of course. So I have a question for you before we start, and you can expand on it, or you can be answered in one sentence, whatever feels good for you. But if I was to ask you what emotional safety and sacred safety felt like for you, given everything that you've been through, how would you describe that in a few words for yourself?
Emotional safety, what that feels like for me. Within myself, that means understanding my emotions, understanding my triggers, learning to cope in a healthy manner. And in the sense of emotional safety within the external world, that also means just being understood and validated from the people I am speaking to, or just being heard for sure. That's what makes me feel the most safe.
Yeah, no, and that resonates deeply with me. I feel the same way. Oh, thank you for answering that. So I want to start off with kind of just like an introduction. So if you could tell all the listeners and viewers what it is that you do, and whatever you want to share about what you do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, hello everyone. My name is Ashley. If I was to put into words really what I do, I would say first and foremost, I am a twin mom. I don't like to put titles on myself, but I guess that would be one of my favorite titles. I am a twin mom, and that's what takes up most of my time nowadays. But I am also a full-time student. I am working on my bachelor's degree in human services, which is highly focused on youth development. So I will be graduating in like a year. So then I'll be going into the field after that. And I'm also a UGC creator and an influencer. So that is how I get by.
Yeah. And you do such a good job. I love all your content. Like that's how we met.
Thank you. Yeah.
through each other's content.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that.
So do you want to kind of because I know the twin mom part kind of came up first as like one of your first titles. And I wanted to ask you a question around how has being a mom changed your life and allowed you to see the world in a different perspective?
Wow. So after becoming a mom, I changed my whole entire life. I feel like I was living very inauthentically to myself before, and just very very people pleasing, and just tolerating things that I just, as a mom, you start thinking do I want my child to live like this? Do I want my child to tolerate these things, this sort of treatment from other people, or even I think boundaries has been a very big thing after becoming a mom, because
Yeah.
you have to advocate for your children. They don't have a voice, so you have to be the one to
Yeah.
say, hey, we don't do that, we don't say that around them, we're not going to parent them this way, we're going to do it that way, or we have a set schedule and this is the time that this happens, and this is when we don't do that. So I feel like definitely boundaries and just being more authentic to myself, because not just for my daughter, but for my daughter has been so big, because I am a woman. I
Yeah.
know what it is to follow the example of a mother. But just for both of my children, I want them to know that they they don't have to, I guess, they don't have to live in a way where it's pleasing to others. They should live
Yeah.
and be the person that they are, and not be afraid to voice their opinions or voice their needs and wants, or be afraid of what people might say about them. I think that that's something that has my whole life changed. Well, I guess my whole life, of course, but I guess like my personality has changed a lot since becoming a mother because of that. I
Yeah.
grew up with no boundaries and no privacy, and I just was like, no, we're gonna
Yeah.
cut that out right now, and we're gonna set this straight, and my kids are gonna learn about this from a very early age.
Yeah. No, and I really admire that so much just because I think children can be so misunderstood, and having a mom like you kind of instilling those values into them and these like mindsets is going to be so helpful for them in their own personal development and even in their own like neurological development as well too. Like they're going to have a different self-perception of themselves that, because I mean, I know your story already, we're going to get into that soon. But like they're going to experience life completely differently than what happened with you, right? And
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
so I love that you're able to kind of break that generational cycle that was happening for you, right? And I think it takes so much courage to do that and so much like self-accountability, self-discipline, but also like a lot of self-compassion too, right?
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next question is I guess, I'm going to leave this open to you around like kind of sharing your story. You can go into as much detail or as less detail as you'd like. But, like how did you get from where you were? And I know our viewers don't really know where you were before, but to where you are now, because like you completely changed your life. Like you completely changed your life. Like your story, when we kind of had our meeting before, like I left our conversation and I was just thinking about it and I was like, wow, like you're actually so amazing. Yeah, no, because no, really, like there's so much struggle that came from your story, but also too is that you rose up from that. And I love how authentic you are about it, like around sharing your story, but also too around how like there's still challenges that come up. So yeah, like I would just really love for you to kind of share your story from where you were to where you are now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely I want our viewers to know that I am on here because I do want to spread awareness on mental health and just people who have gone through traumatic experiences, and just kind of like let them know and see that yes, these experiences may break you, but they don't have to define you. You can heal, and healing is an ongoing process. It's never like you're
Yes.
fully healed. We're always going through things, but I don't feel like, especially like the things that I've been through, I don't feel like they have to completely break you, and you don't have to stay stuck in that mindset, in
Mm-hmm.
that living in the past and always going back to that trauma. You can like surpass that. And I do feel like that word is thrown around a lot, like trauma. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
will just be like, oh, I'm happy today and sad tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I'm so bipolar. Like, we're always like ready to like label ourselves with some
Yeah.
mental illness. And there, a lot of people, everybody, honestly, it's
Mm-hmm.
unavoidable, go through really stressful experiences. I
Yeah.
feel like trauma is more so like the wound that is left in you after this stressful
Yeah.
experience. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
scar,
Yeah, like the
which not
symptoms
every
after.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not like every stressful experience will cause that, but that's what makes a traumatic experience. So I just want to like shed light on that before I get into
Yeah.
my story and like where I was. So getting into that, where I was, I would say for the viewers who haven't heard my story, I came from I was born from immigrant parents. I'm both born from in Colombia. I am a first generation Latina here living in United States. So most immigrant born children will understand the pressure that is put on you to be, I wouldn't say perfect, but to succeed in this country. And just kind of, it's an unconscious pressure because you think
Yeah.
about, wow, my parents came here to give me a better life, and I can't seem to bring
Yeah.
myself to have this better life. For instance, for me, there was a lot of self-sabotaging moments.
Mhm.
For the viewers that are watching, my father was deported when I was 15 years old. He was deported back to Colombia, and 15 years old is such a fragile
Mhm.
stage, especially if, I don't want to say especially for a woman, but I just feel like, for your father to be deported as a
Yeah.
woman, as a teenage girl, needing that sort of security and safety and that father figure. I was so, I was going through an emotional and mental development stage there where I really needed a father figure. I really needed that security there, and I didn't have that. It was kind of like ripped
Mhm.
away. And I was grieving my old life, grieving the role that my father had in my life. And
Yeah.
grieving doesn't always have to do with like end of life or death or anything. It's just
Yeah.
I was I was living a completely different life than I was before. And I think that stage in my life, being that I was so fragile, it made me just not really understand my value as a woman. And it just, my self-worth went very low. I guess at that
Mhm.
point, you're learning your self-worth. So I never learned that part of
Yeah.
myself as a woman. So that led to a lot of vulnerability to men, a lot of promiscuity. Um,
Yeah.
I know I said I didn't want to say this word, but I do want to bring awareness to it because it's not
Yeah.
what people think. Um and I am going to talk about my sister because it is kind of something that me and her went through together. I'm talking about
Yeah.
my story, but it is something that we went through together. And at I was 18 and my sister was 19. We were human trafficked, and I feel like a lot of people think about like the movie like Taken or like
Yeah.
like crazy scenarios, but it could
Yeah.
actually happen to you in the most subtle ways
Yep.
where it's happening right in front of your eyes and you're allowing it, but you don't really know that it's happening to you. You think that, in my case, since I did come from immigrant parents and this like unconscious pressure to succeed in life and the money and to take care of my parents,
Mhm.
and seeing how hard they worked and knowing that I'm the only way that they're going to be able to stop working so hard, or yeah, just kind of take care of them in the sense,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
Latino parents, they're always saying like, when I'm older, you're going to take care of me. When I'm
Yeah.
older, you're going to live with me. Or, like, I don't put me in a nursing home. So, you're always thinking about, how am
Yeah.
I going to be this millionaire to be able to like save my family?
So,
So,
sorry, before you go on, like, I kind of want to
yeah,
touch on that really quickly. Like, that's a lot of pressure for a child to carry, like, even though it's a part of the culture. And
yeah.
I guess my question is like, do you have those same expectations, like being a mom right now and like also growing up in the United States? Like, even though it's a part of the culture, is that something that you're planning on carrying, like into your relationship with your kids? Like, is that like an expectation that you have of them as well too?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely not.
Because you know
And
how it feels, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. And I speak to my mom about this now, and she says, that she's like really sorry. She never meant it in that way. And
yeah.
I don't blame them because it was, honestly, it's something that's passed down.
Yeah.
So it's never, to blame them, because my mom says, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was doing that to you. I'm so sorry. I just meant
Yeah.
it in a way, like a harmless way of just saying like,
Yeah.
I love you. I want to be with you, and you're my daughter, and
Yeah.
but I absolutely not will. I will never carry that on. I will never put that pressure on my kids. Even it's an unconscious pressure. Our parents didn't do it to us
Yeah.
on purpose,
Yeah.
but something that was always spoken about in my home as a child was, there's not enough money for this. We
Mhm.
can't do this because there's no money.
Yeah.
That's too much money. You can only choose one thing because we don't have enough money. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's the unconscious pressure where it makes you like, I'll do anything for money because we
Yeah.
don't have it. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
For
So
sure.
that's where that like being trafficked came from. We were like, you know what? We were promised this lifestyle and this money. We're going to go do whatever it takes, even if it means, sacrificing our mental health, our bodies. It doesn't matter. We're going to go do that because of that mindset that we were kind of stuck in, that like scarcity mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much for sharing that piece about, well, I kind of want to go back to the piece about like people think of, human trafficking being like this like really grandiose thing of like someone gets kidnapped and then, but really what happens is a lot of grooming, like what we call in like and I know you know this
Exactly.
because you're studying this as well, right? But, there's lots of grooming that happens, right? Where
Yeah.
like you actually start to feel like this person loves you, right? And that they care
Mm-hmm.
about you and that they want the best for
Yes.
you. They get you to trust you. They get you to trust them.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
And
Yep.
it's like super manipulative. But at the same time too, it's like I get why it happened because, not having that male security there, like, and again, like this is no fault of your father, like it's not his fault that he got deported, right?
Exactly.
But having him absent, of course, you're going to go look for that in other places, right? Because I think it's
Yep.
just a natural human thing, right? It's
Yep.
a natural human thing to be gravitated towards, someone who's going to give us love when there's like a void that needs to be filled, especially at like such a young age, right? Because
Yep.
it does impact like the psychological development of like how we view ourselves in the world and how we feel safe in the world, and your safety, a part of your safety was taken away. And it just makes so much sense why you were in that position, right?
Yes.
But
100%. And that's why it was very much, it was coming from like seeking external validation,
yeah,
like seeking that security just from the external world, since I couldn't find it at home, since I didn't have that at home,
yeah,
and my dad was going through his own things. I can't imagine being the one who's deported, being the one who your whole life was ripped
yeah,
apart. How can you actually show up as this perfect father when you're going through so much, like
yeah.
there was a period of time when my dad was being deported, and it was not just like a quick thing where you just, oh, you get on a plane
Hmm.
and they take you. He was in a detention center, and I had to see my dad in this
Wow.
orange jumpsuit. I had to go visit him at 15 years old. It was
Yeah.
very like just a shock to a
Hmm.
young woman just to see that. And just at that point, I was me and my sister were like, like when we turn 18, like we got to do whatever it is
Of
to try
course.
to
Yeah.
get him back here, to get the money for the lawyers, to get
Yeah.
whatever it is that we could do to make sure that he can be, either he can come back, or if he can't come back, then he will be comfortable over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So going back to where I was and how I got to where I am now, eventually it wasn't long till we like escaped that situation. But knowing the fast money, still being in that mindset of, we need to do whatever it takes to
Hmm.
make money and succeed in this life. We stayed in this lifestyle, and I guess that's the part of me that was just living very inauthentically, because it's
Hmm.
not necessarily who I am. It was just what I was doing. So
Yeah.
me and my sister lived this life where we were just causing ourselves so much harm, physically and mentally, without really even, without just caring about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a point I was in a very toxic relationship as well. And when I was in California, that's where we went. And I think there was just a breaking point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that wasn't the point where I like completely had a revelation. No, I was just like, I don't think I can handle this relationship plus the lifestyle I'm living.
Hmm.
The relationship was enabling not just like the sex work and stuff, but it was also enabling the drugs and just like suppressing my
Yeah.
emotions and just it wasn't healthy for me at all, just to
Yeah.
say the least. It really wasn't. So I think I decided I'm gonna leave. I asked my mom to borrow $2,000 and I was like, I gotta pack my stuff up and leave. I packed all my clothes and everything in boxes and I shipped it out. And I came back to Florida. And I think at that point, I kind of realized I need to make a shift in my life because I don't know where I'm headed in the future. I don't see a
Yeah.
future for myself. And that's when I kind of ran into education and learning about, um, I guess, before I came to Florida, I was one of those people who was like, you don't need school, and that's
Hmm.
okay. I'm not judging anyone who thinks this way because
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has their own path in life.
Exactly.
But for
Yeah.
me, I got to a point where I was like, I think I really need school if I'm going to continue or even just see a future for myself because I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So I think I did like real estate school that I was like, I don't like that. That's not for me.
Yeah.
I kept doing my like the first, I think it's like the first 2 semesters of school is like the super basic classes like math, science, English. You're kind of like
Yeah.
reviewing everything you learned in high school. And I would drop out and go back in and drop out and go back in. And then
Hmm.
finally I realized I want to get to know myself so much better. And I think the only way that I can do that is by studying psychology. So I was
Yeah.
like, I
Oh
think
my
that if,
gosh. Yeah. I love that.
yeah,
Sorry.
I was like, I think that if I want to heal myself, and at this point, my sister was still living this lifestyle, and
Yeah.
there was no hope that she was going to get out of this lifestyle. So I was
Yeah.
like, if I could figure out what was is going on with me, maybe I can help her too. So I started studying psychology because I just wanted to get to know myself and heal myself and then eventually help my sister as well. So
Hmm.
that's when I just found the love for psychology. And honestly, I skipped the whole math and science thing. I went straight into psychology classes. And eventually I did do, those basic classes, but I was
Yeah.
like, I need to figure out if this is really, really what I like. And all those classes came so easy to me. They were talking about
Hmm.
anxiety, depression. They were talking about, opiates and suppressing your emotion. I'm like, oh, I know all about
You're
this.
like,
I was
I've
like,
lived this.
yeah, I was like acing everything. And this is before COVID, before, everything went
Yeah.
online. So I was in person getting A's and B's. I'm like, wow, like I'm actually smart. Like I
Of
could do this.
course. Yeah.
I could do this. So I think that to put it plain and simple, how I got to where I am from where I was is definitely getting to know myself better.
Yeah.
Um Wanting to make that change in myself and
Yeah, exactly.
accepting what was wrong with me and understanding that I did have to make extreme shifts in my life if I wanted to get better.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
really just like realizing like, okay, it's time for a change.
Yeah. And like you did this all before you had kids, right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
so, and I know it's like it's probably just amplified since you've had kids, but
Oh yeah.
I really like what you said around like you realized that you wanted to get to know yourself more, and that was kind of through understanding yourself, right?
Hmm.
And I just think again like that it's so brave of you to want to get to know yourself because I don't think that you had the opportunity to do that because you were in survival mode your whole
Yes.
life, right?
Hmm.
Like and it's really hard to focus on ourselves and our needs and getting to know ourselves when we're just like shit, like I'm just trying to put food on the table, right?
Yes.
So like just given where you were at, I think it's amazing that you did that. And so so I know you said you packed up your bags and you borrowed money from your mom. You went back. Like was it just kind of a buildup of everything, or one day you're just like, okay, like fuck this shit, like I'm out of here, like I'm not doing this anymore? Or like was there a specific thing that kind of like set you off and was just like, okay, like this is my last straw?
Um, uh, I feel like the last straw was probably months of anxiety attacks.
Okay.
I couldn't get through the day without my heart palpitating, my hands
Yeah.
getting clammy, that feeling of like when you're on a roller coaster. Like every single day I would have an anxiety attack. I felt like I guess it was just all an accumulation of just living inauthentically, knowing that I was
Hmm.
putting myself through so much, dealing with everything I had put myself through before.
Yeah,
And I think my body just said, just gave up. My body was
for
just like, I
sure.
can't anymore. I don't care even if I gotta go home to mommy. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll do anything as long as I can feel safe again.
Safe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many studies that show that trauma is stored in the body, and I can only imagine that, well, not only like the trauma of your dad being deported, but I can only imagine that you experience a lot of trauma through the work that you were doing as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like through, I mean, I don't know how the clientele was, but like I can just only imagine, right? Like so
Yeah.
especially and too on an energetic level as well too. It's like you're holding so many people's emotions based on like the people that you were interacting with, right? And like your body was
Yep.
probably just like, yeah, like I can't do this. But I want to also just highlight that your soul was always activated because there like even throughout your story you mentioned like, okay, like I knew that this wasn't something that I wanted to do, even though like you were continuing to do it at points, right?
Yeah.
But like your soul continued to call you back home to itself because like look where you are
Exactly.
now, right? Like
Yeah.
you made those steps. And like sometimes like people think like when you have like this like soul awakening that it's like, oh, it's this one thing that happens on this one occasion, but it's actually just like a continual process. And it's very similar to what you explained. It's like you said, when you left, like it wasn't just all done then. Like you had to go through it still after, like you were in and out of school, and like you had to find what resonated with your heart and with your soul, right?
Yes.
And I think it's amazing that like when we take ourselves out of those harmful environments where we're not feeling of worth, where we're not feeling respected, where we're feeling out of alignment, that we get closer to ourselves. We get closer to the connection to our soul. And like I think that when we just get quiet and we bring ourselves back to safety, that we can hear those messages very clearly, or at least be guided to those messages, just like you were to psychology, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. 100%. I feel like that's exactly what happened to me. Not just no, it wasn't just like my soul was calling me anymore. It was my body was telling me
Yeah.
something. I was having
Hmm.
physical symptoms of all the things I had put myself through and the toxic relationship I was tolerating.
Yeah.
It my body literally gave out. It was like I just can't. I was in the middle. I think it was like 4 months into a lease with my ex, and
Oh,
I was like,
wow.
I don't care what it
Yeah.
takes. I need to go. I'll break this lease. I'll pay $10,000. I don't care as
Yeah.
long as I get to feel safe again, because I was so tired of living in survival mode and just so
Yeah, it's
depressed and just
exhausting.
waking up, and I don't have any family over there, and I'm such a
Yeah.
family oriented person that when I would get these anxiety attacks, I couldn't call anyone. I couldn't, if I did call someone, I would worry them on this side of
Yeah.
the country, and I didn't want to do that. So I was just very, very alone over there. And my body, my mind, my heart, my soul was just telling me it's time. Like you got to
Yeah.
start live. I think I was 23, 24, and I was like, I remember being 18 and thinking like 23, 24, 25 is so far away, and then I
Yeah.
finally was that age, and I'm like, wait, time is flying. I don't want to look back one day and say, wow, I wasted so much time, or I should have done this, I should have done that, or I
Yeah.
sacrificed my happiness. So
Yeah.
that I listened to that calling, and I think that was probably one of the best decisions of my life. My
Yeah.
whole entire life, that was one of the best decisions.
Yeah. Oh, and you should be so proud of yourself. And
Thank
I'm
you.
proud of you. Like it's like I said, it's not an easy thing to do, and like you did it. You changed your whole life around. I want a quick question before we go into talking about your sister is, what would you consider to have been like the hardest part about like sex work?
I think the hardest part about it, I guess it's really like sacrificing your body and yourself for money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really like you're just, and again, this is not to judge or put anybody down for
No, no.
their the work that they do. I just have experienced it, I feel like, in a very real and a very, I feel like I had nothing else
Yeah.
going for myself. Like this was all I was
Hmm.
good for, So
Yeah.
for me, I feel like I just sacrificed my well-being and my body for money. And when you really
Yeah.
think back on that, you think like am I like is my whole being, like God created the earth, the sun, the stars, the moon.
Yeah.
He created me, and I am worth like this green paper. Like I am worth
Yeah.
less than that. Like I'm putting that above myself. Like I can't believe I could even do that to myself, And
Yeah.
I feel like you just lose. I don't want to say you, because I don't want to generalize it, but me, I lost myself, and I lost my self worth and my value
Yeah.
while doing that work. And I would let anybody treat me however,
Hmm.
because I was like, as long as I'm making a quick buck, I'm
Hmm.
good. Like I have money
Yeah.
to stack away, I have money to send my parents. And not just for money, it turned into allowing people, friends, family, exes, just treat me however, because I'm
Hmm.
like, I am worth nothing. I didn't have any self worth. I just felt like all of that was just uh, torn from me. And I
Yeah.
didn't even know how to get that back. I didn't even know what I was worth. I just felt like I was, honestly, to put it plain and simple, honestly, just like trash. I was like, I am
Yeah.
reusable. I am, like just a piece of, meat just walking this earth. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what I do, what I put myself through, by the grace of God, me and my sister have escaped death and many
Hmm.
things. Just, I don't even know how, but we have been put in crazy situations where it's like, we should not be here today, but we
Yeah.
are. And that kind of also showed me like, you have to stop putting yourself through this, because one day it will happen to you. It will
Yeah.
be your day that
Like it will
you
be too
won't
late.
survive this. Yeah, it will
Yeah.
be too late. And I think that that's probably the hardest thing about it, that you just kind of lose yourself within it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, honestly,
Yeah.
that's,
No, thank you for sharing that and being so honest about that. And I can understand like why you would feel that way as well too. And like from what I can see is like you've built yourself up again and you have this self-worth, you have this confidence. I see you on your stories enjoying your life. And no, really, it's so nice. Like I honestly love watching your content. And we'll put like your handle in the show notes as well too. But like it's like if you could like think back to like how you're feeling to like where you are now, I just again like such an amazing transformation. So
yes. Yeah.
yeah.
It's been, I feel like it's a complete 180.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't say that I regret everything I put myself through and the things that
Yeah.
I've been through, because it has brought me this far. And
Yeah.
I don't know what type of mindset I would have if I didn't go through those things. But
Yeah.
I'm here and I'm alive. I survived it. And the only way to connect with people is really being vulnerable. And that's why I'm just on here, just sharing my story and just being vulnerable, because whoever is out there that thinks that they're going through a super hard time, like, it's not the end of your life. Things will get
Yeah.
better. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can heal. You are
Yeah.
fixable. Like people think like, no, I'm just broken. I'm stuck. My
Yeah.
past defines me. And it's really not like that. Life, people say
Yeah.
life is short, but you got time. You have time
Yeah.
to change your life. There's always time. It's never too late.
Yeah. There's always time, and like also like I think the difference with you and maybe some other people who might be struggling with this, again, like no judgment, is just like you have to be willing to want to make those changes as well too, and be committed to that,
Yeah.
because it can be really easy to fall back into patterns, and like not just like action patterns, but like thought patterns, and like it could be easy to like go back to that lifestyle. But again, there's like choosing, like you chose self-respect, you chose yourself, right? And I think that's like such a huge thing that allowed you to leave that situation. And even for anyone who's listening who might like have a similar past, or who is actually going through something like this right now, I think this is just going to be such, not only just an inspiration, but like a nudge, if this is something that like they're willing and wanting to leave, that you know they can do it, right? Like they can
Yeah.
do it, and they do have time to do it, and it's not going to be easy. Like there's going to be challenges, but
Hmm.
it's worth it. It's worth it. And like you said, like it shaped you to be who you are today. And
Yeah.
not only that, I think like it's impacted the way that you parent as well too, which I think is so important. Like I think the upcoming children are so important, because I think they're just going to change this world too. And
Yeah, exactly. The
children's
the youth is the
safety.
future.
Yeah. And
Yes.
children's safety, like for me, like that's something so dear to my heart, where it's like even with my nephews and my nieces, like I'm just like, oh gosh, like I just want them to feel safe and accepted for who they are, and just to like show up and like just be them, like, and just know that
Yes.
it's okay, right? And like you're just providing such a beautiful foundation for your kids, and changing the experience that you had, and giving them like a safe life, right? So
Yes, that's my
yeah.
goal.
Yeah, and you're doing such a good job at it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, so I would love for you to share about your sister. Your sister, like this is such a beautiful story. Like hearing this, when I heard it for the first time, it really touched my heart, and seeing how you moved through it as well too was like it was just really impactful. So yeah, I'll let you share.
So my sister, oh my gosh, we are Irish twins. We are so close in age. Um, we are only a year and 4 months apart, I believe. Um, and she was such an impact in my life. Those of you listening that knew her, she was, for me, she was the strongest person I
Hmm.
knew. And I know that nowadays, that's probably not the best compliment, because you don't want to be the strongest person. You want people to have compassion with you. You want
Hmm.
people to understand your situation and ask you, hey, are you okay? What's wrong? But she was so strong that most of the time, no one really asked her those questions, because she held her head up high regardless of what she was going through. She actually never left that lifestyle. She was, I don't want to say stuck there, but she was, like I said, you just kind of lose sight of the rest of the world and kind of like
Yeah.
your own value. And like you said, it takes a really big commitment to stop doing that and living that lifestyle. So she did she did continue in that, but she I don't know how to explain it. She was so, I guess, like graceful with it. She was
Hmm.
just like, she knew what she was doing. Man, she was just, I like, strong is like the only word that comes to me, because
Yeah.
she was like like a tower to me, like my brick wall. Like she says I was
Yeah.
her rock, but I'm like, no, girl, you were my rock. Like
Yeah.
you're the one, she's the one who taught me to like love myself. She's the one who taught me to be feminine. She's the one
Yeah.
who taught me to, even like as a young girl, like flirt and like,
Hmm.
just like how to dress and be girly. And she really molded me into the woman that I am now. And unfortunately, Um, some people may know, some people may not know, but she did pass away from an accidental fentanyl overdose. And I just feel like though that was one of the moments that where I told myself one day we're gonna be in a situation where we can't, like, we don't win,
Yeah.
like like a lot of people might think like why would God allow that, and I never
Yeah.
think that, because like God is not there, and like God was not there, like that's the devil having like a
Hmm.
chokehold on somebody, like that is it's it's uh it's like a situation where God isn't there, God is holy, and he is, how do I explain? He is, I just feel like a lot of people say that, like, how could God allow something to happen like
Yeah.
that? And it's really not, that's not the case, because it was just one of those situations where she shouldn't have been there. She shouldn't have been
Hmm.
doing what she was doing. But at the end of the day, it overcame her. And um, it wasn't a situation that she could fight. She was dealing with addiction. She was had just gotten out of rehab. She was on antidepressants, also battling an eating disorder. So it was just so much that she was going through, that her body just couldn't fight it anymore.
Yeah.
Her it was just a situation a very dangerous situation that she put herself in, that her body just, it couldn't. I mean, fentanyl is a very strong drug.
Oh,
Most
yeah.
people
It's
don't
super
most
dangerous.
people don't survive that, but it was something that, it just, sadly, it happened. And I mean, it's been so impactful in my life that after it happened, I completely changed who I was. I So much came into perspective, where I was like, life is so fragile
Hmm.
that we tend to take it for granted. We really don't know how fragile it is until something like this kind of happens to us, or the
Yeah.
death of a family member, a really close person in our lives.
Yeah.
um then that's when we kind of like snap into reality, like, wow, this could happen to anybody. A lot of the thoughts that come to me is like, the last words I said to her, the last time I spoke to her, you never know that it's your last time, so
Hmm. Yeah.
it really shifted my perspective on life, and just gave me this newfound appreciation of life, but also like who I am, and that life is, like I said, it's very fragile. So you should live it as authentic as
Hmm.
possible and love every bit of it. And after that, I kind of, I made like a deal with myself. Like, I will no longer sacrifice my happiness, and I'm going to
Yeah.
stop these people pleasing tendencies, and I'm going to set my boundaries, and I want to live my life the way I want to, on my terms,
Yeah.
because at any moment it could be ripped away from me. And
Yeah.
I feel like my sister had so much left to live. Like, even though she lived so much, she, like me and my mom always say, like, she lived a life of like 10 people. Like, she lived so much, but she still had so much left to her legacy.
Oh,
She
of
had
course.
she had a lot left to do, and I know that she was on the path to changing. And you know um addiction sucks, relapsing
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I think that addiction is one of the hardest things to go through in life, because it's like
Hmm.
you against you. There's nobody else besides
Yeah.
you're like the master of your body. So you're the only person who can say, I'm choose not to do it this day, I choose to do it that day.
Hmm.
And even battling an eating disorder, it's just you. There's no one, it's not like a cancer where you like didn't bring it upon yourself and it's something so sudden, and you could go to treatment and you willingly go to treatment because you're like, I need to, get better, I need to heal. This is
Yeah.
something that is like you, like I said, it's you against you. And unfortunately, she did pass away, but she did leave so many big life lessons for me. And
Yeah.
it did completely change my life. And her death has not been in vain. It has been
Yeah.
something that taught me and my whole family a huge life lesson. And we have been so much closer since that. We have prioritized our time together. We have
Yeah.
um, we appreciate each other so much more. And I had a really big problem before with being vulnerable with people. I grew up in an environment where if you cried, it was like, I'll give you something to cry about.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
weren't allowed to like express yourself. And I feel like after she passed away, I was like, I'm done being like that. Like, if I have to
Yeah.
cry, I'll cry. If I feel sad, I'll feel sad and I'll communicate that. And I don't know that if she hadn't passed, I would ever be that way. I don't know the type
Yeah.
of mother I would be if she hadn't passed. And I'm not saying like it's a good thing she passed away. Of course
Yeah.
not. I would prefer her a billion times for her to be here and I'd still be this toxic person. I don't care. but
Yeah.
but like I said, her death didn't go in vain, and it was something that just taught us so much. And I know that she's looking down on my family and me, especially, just so proud at how far I've gotten, how much I've changed my life. The fact that I became a mom, I mean, I was always
Yeah.
saying, like, I'm scared to be a mom. I don't know if I'd be a good mom. And now I'm a twin mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like when I found out I was having twins, I was like, this is insane. This has to be like my sister, like sending me
Yeah.
like another baby to love, like just more
Yeah.
love in my life. And you know she was just so amazing, just a big sister. Like, she was like the definition of a
Mhm.
big sister. She was my biggest fan. She always was rooting for me, always encouraging me. Even if we were living the same lifestyle, she was always the one who was like, you need to get out of that, you need to be better. Even if she continued in that lifestyle, she was always like, I'm so happy you're going to school. She did see me she was able to be there for my associate's degree, and she was
Oh, yeah.
so happy. Like, I don't think I've ever seen her that happy genuinely, because
Yeah.
she was just the type of person to always kind of like fake that smile, pretend to be happy just even when she wasn't. And I could just tell that me accomplishing that was something so grand for her. Something like, she was like, wow. She would always tell me, she would say, I'm like the little sister and you're the big sister. So I knew that, I feel her love. I still feel it.
Yeah.
I feel her presence. I feel her energy. It's so strong. And I hope to one day be able to see her again. And I could tell her
Yeah.
everything that, I've all the changes I've made, and introduce her to my children. I dream of her so much. It's crazy. It's like
Aw.
she's still here. I still feel
Yeah,
her
she's
here.
trying to connect with you. Like I
Yes.
deeply believe in that, like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that, you resonate with that around like that she's still there. You can feel her presence, you can feel her energy, and the fact that she's in your dreams, she's definitely trying to connect with you and let you know that she's still there.
Yes.
I'm curious to know before her passing, while you guys were kind of in this together, and I know you mentioned you grew up kind of in a household where suppressing your feelings was kind of the norm, right? Were you like, did you feel safe enough to talk to her about those things? Like, did you guys ever have those conversations around like, you know, the stuff that your family was going through, how it was impacting you guys, and like actually having conversations about like, oh, like we're in this work because of, these circumstances, or was it just kind of something that was just like understood?
She was the only person that I could talk to about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
We spoke about that so much. We understood each
Yeah.
other on that level. And I do feel like there's like details, sorry.
No, that's
There's
okay.
like details of my life that
It's okay. Take your time. That's okay.
that no one will ever know.
Yeah.
And she's probably the only person who could understand that
Yeah.
without judgment, without having to explain too much, because we just had that mutual understanding of everything that we
Yeah.
went through as children and as teenagers. And we definitely we spoke about that. I would say every week we would send each other like little like through the DMs, like we would send each other like, you know, like these quotes like, oh, like the first generation Latinas and what we go through. And
Yeah.
you know, having to feel like the unconscious pressure of our parents. And
Yeah.
it was a lot of financial pressure because of how we grew up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say like we grew up like really poor or anything, because my dad was a very hard worker, so was my mom.
Mm-hmm.
But there always just was that pressure, because we knew our parents came to this country to give us a better life, and we were kind of like self-sabotaging trying
Yeah.
to get to this life. And we would always talk to each other like, why are we like this? Like, why can't we get better? Why do we, you know, drink? Or why are we, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like just putting ourselves through this? And
Yeah.
we definitely understood each other in that sense. And a lot of people, I mean, most people just won't understand that unless they've been
No.
through it. So, you know, you meet a lot of new people in life, and I'm not going to sit here and tell them all those things about myself, but
Yeah.
there it is a really big part of me that, you know, kind of went with her, because
Of
that was the
course.
only person that I could really relate to in
Yeah.
that sense.
Yeah. And you know what? I think like there's not going to be anybody that compares to the relationship that you had with her. Like at the end of the day, like she was your sister. And not only that, is that like you said, like she knows and you've shared so many things about yourself. And I'm sure vice versa, that like nobody else in this world knows. And I think that gets to be so special and so sacred, right? Like nobody else gets to have that. Like you guys just
Yeah.
get to have that for you. And
Yeah.
I know like I can only imagine how much you miss her because it sucks when like your best friend has been snatched from you and
Yeah.
you know you can't really talk to them in this like physical realm, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's crazy that I went through all of that with my sister. You know, a lot of people have like
Yeah.
best friends that they share these
Yeah.
connections with and this sort of like chemistry with, but it was just it was me and my sister who went through that. And she was my best friend as much as she got on my nerves sometimes, and I
Yeah.
got on her nerves, you know, like that was my best friend, and she was my first everything, my first friend, my first, you know, like play date, you know, like that
Yeah.
was my girl. Like we would play Barbies together. She would
Yeah.
cut my Barbie's hair. I would, you know, steal her stuff, write
Yeah.
on them, you know, like your siblings are always your first everything. And just the
Yeah.
fact that we went through so much together and we could share that. um it was obviously very traumatic experiences, but at least I was able to be with my sister during that, someone who I knew would always
Yeah.
take care of me and make sure that I'm safe.
Yeah. And that's such a good point that you brought up. Like you guys are kind of in it together and some people like I mean, I don't want to like minimize your situation. That's not what I'm doing, but I'm just saying that like there's some people who like don't have anybody in it, right? And so there was kind of like that safety net that she was there, like
Yeah.
to know that like,
Hmm.
hey, like my big sister has me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. No, and it sounds like she was like a really positive role model for you as well too. Like even though like she was, you know, still living out that lifestyle, she was encouraging you to leave it and it just sounds like she saw you for who you really are, right?
Yes.
Like and it's great because she reflected that back to you because you mentioned feeling like, "Oh, you know, am I only worth like this like green paper, right?" And she was like,
Yep.
"No, like
Yes,
I see
exactly.
you,
Yes.
no," right? So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that and for being
Of
so vulnerable.
course.
I know it's not easy to talk about these things. So I really appreciate you um sharing that. We should probably wrap up because I think like it's almost at the hour point, but
Yes.
um I guess I like to end off, I guess I just kind of want to ask you, like, what do you see your future vision like? And like you've came so far, and like what's your future vision for yourself given everything that you've been through, given, even like still kind of dealing with the grief around all of this? Because like yes, like I'm a huge believer that like people can move past their trauma, but I know some things like still come up for me too as a survivor of trauma. Given that like I've overcome it as well, but there's still things that kind of show up randomly where it's like, oh shit, like this
Yeah.
again. So I guess like my question is, yeah, like how in an emotional level and just like whatever level you kind of want to explain it on, but like what is your future vision for yourself? Like what do you see for yourself?
It's funny that you say on an emotional level because when I think about my future, that's probably the only way that I could see it. I just
Yeah.
see myself, I don't see it like in a career aspect. I see it more as of like a feeling, like
Yeah.
how I want to feel. And I think that it's a healthier lifestyle,
Hmm.
more so in the sense of learning to cope better,
Yeah.
um, live just continue on my path to authenticity,
Yeah.
because there's still, I guess you could say like there's still like relapses, where I'm
For
like
sure.
I'm drinking and I'm like
Yeah.
I quit smoking weed, which is like huge because I've been smoking for like 15 years,
Yeah.
but there's times where I'm like I find myself craving a drink, or I find myself
Hmm.
trying to escape in unhealthy
Yeah.
manners, and I want my future to be where I don't see the grass greener on the other side. I see myself watering my grass where I am.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I don't want to seek. I feel like I want to be fulfilled where I am now. I don't
Yeah.
want to think about in a few months I will feel better. No, I want to feel better now. I want to
Yeah.
feel like that happiness. And I do feel like I am reaching that point because I used to feel so guilty for being happy after my sister passed away. I just felt like I was like illegal to be happy. Like I
Yeah.
shouldn't feel that way. Um, so now I'm actually allowing myself more, I guess, giving myself more grace and just allowing myself to feel that happiness without feeling like, having that instant trigger, that thought in your head, oh, your sister's not here. You
Yeah.
can't feel that way.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
she's not here. You shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Or, don't forget your sister died.
Yeah.
That's like the instant, like, oh God, like anxiety. But
Yeah.
I do feel like I'm allowing myself more of that, but it does, like you said, like it's something that like you might be like, oh crap, I thought I worked through this. Wait, why
Yeah.
is it coming back?
Yeah.
So I do, my future, what I, on an emotional level, I see myself in very simple terms. I see myself being happy, just
Yeah.
happy, because I have struggled with that my whole, I guess, I don't want to say my whole life because as a child you're so innocent and happy, obviously, but I have struggled with that for as long as I can remember, just being genuinely happy where I am, not seeking the next thrill, the next
Yeah.
high. I just want to be content where I am. And whether that's in motherhood, because motherhood is also very hard, and it's something that like,
Hmm.
it's another, grieving process,
Yeah.
grieving my old life, grieving my old self.
Yeah.
So I just want to be content where I am.
Hmm.
And as far as my career and stuff, I do feel like as I get closer to graduating and stuff, that will also bring me more into my authenticity and just living the life that I want to live and helping others. It will definitely bring me a lot more happiness.
Yeah. No, and I think too is like I think you're exploring redefining what happiness means for you, right? Because like
Yeah.
we're often sold like the fairy tale happy ending and like, and sometimes like happiness is just like yeah, like kind of like what you said is like being content with where you're at while knowing that you're growing in the direction that you want to go in, right? And so,
Yes.
yeah, I think redefining your own happiness and understanding like, okay, like what does that mean for me, and actually embodying that is what you're actually doing right now. So, yeah. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
do you have any last words for our viewers and our listeners?
I'd like to say if you've gotten this far, thank you so much for listening. I hope that this could inspire anybody watching who has been through any traumatic experiences, or even if, you can't necessarily relate to what I'm saying. It could, I hope that it could just bring you to realize that whatever you've gone through, it doesn't define you, and it's never too
Mm,
late to change your life. And it doesn't matter how old you are, 20, 30, 40, you
yeah.
are able to heal from everything that you've been through.
Yeah.
And there is a better life waiting for you,
Yeah.
um, as long as you want that for yourself.
Yeah. That is such good advice. Such good advice. Oh, thank you so much for being here, for just sharing your life, sharing your vulnerability, sharing your heart. It means so much to me. And sorry, one more thing before we leave. Like, I want people to like follow you on your social handles. Like, what's your social handle? I'll put it in the notes, but just for people to like hear it, so that they can find you and see all the good things that you're promoting as well too. I love all the products that you post.
Thank you. Yeah. So my Instagram and my TikTok, and I think my YouTube as well, is Ashley, Ashley. It's two Y. So it's Ashleyy period ALZ. So Ashley Alz. That's my Instagram, my TikTok, and my YouTube. And thank you so much for having me and just letting me be on here and just be vulnerable. It felt so good, like a little therapy session.
Aw. No, the honor was mine, honestly. So, okay, thank you so much. And well, you and I will chat soon. And yeah, thanks
Yay.
everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means so much to me that we got to spend time together today. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at safehavensanctuary_. And if this episode resonated with you, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would share it with someone who you think it might resonate with as well. Or better yet, you could take a screenshot of this episode and share it to your story, tag me in it, just so we can bring more awareness to the podcast, and this will help the podcast to grow as well too. I appreciate all your support. I appreciate you listening, and I love you. Thank you for being here with me. Your presence, your time, your heart, your soul is so deeply valued here. I'll see you on the next episode.